All right, there we are. The life section is alive. I like it. Thank you so much, guys. It is so good to be here. I am so thankful. If you are new here, I want to say thank you for showing up. Thank you for trying out a new place to be among God's people here and hear His word. For some of you, it might ring back to last summer. I did a sermon kind of saying these words, but we're going to just do like the second annual Stuff Takes Care of People sermon, all right? So we're going to repeat after me if you can. We'll go like one and then 2 words and 2 words at a time. So say it after me. Stuff takes care of people. Stuff takes care of people. That is all that stuff does. Your money is a handshake agreement that has value. Somebody, somewhere along the line of history, decided this is what we do. And we could have said rocks are valuable, but now we say cottonish paper bills matter. Stuff, that's all it is. It takes care of people. That's what we do with our money. Your car, that's just stuff. In St. Louis, you need a car. You just kind of do. And so your car, all it does is take care of you. It takes care of others. It gets you from one place to another. Your home, it's stuff. All it does is take care of you. It keeps the outside world out. It keeps you safe. Especially in this St. Louis heat. I had my first summer hibernation day yesterday. Anybody relate? Right? You just stay inside, pretend it's like negative 20 degrees out. You just don't leave the house. But it's just stuff. That is all stuff does. Stuff takes care of people. Say that with me all together. Stuff takes care of people. But when we pretend that's not all that stuff does, we get into trouble. We can pretend that stuff is about status. We can pretend that stuff actually is about making a name for ourselves. We can look at stuff and we can say, man, I can't wait till I get to that number in the bank account and then I'll finally feel taken care of. I'll finally have everything I need. And the funny thing, you can ask anyone who has hit that number they had in their mind and they go, well, it didn't really do it for me. Because all at the core of it is that stuff takes care of people. Now, I'm a little partial. I tend to think that I kind of share those words, but I tend to think that actually Jesus believes the same thing. I know. More like Jesus believes it, so then I believe it, right? But Jesus believes that all stuff does is take care of people. And we actually encounter kind of situations in the Gospels, and especially in the Gospel of Luke, there's one story we're going to look at that actually tells us that all that stuff does is take care of people. So today I want to be a little bit brief. I tried to think I could get it to like a tight 15 minutes because I've been dragging worship out on you guys these last couple weeks. Oh, I know I have. And so I want to share 3 scenes with you. 3 scenes. So the first scene is this. Jesus was out teaching in his ministry, and it says that he runs into 2 brothers, or actually one brother, presumably the other brother was there. And the one brother cries out to Jesus and says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And man, none of you have ever fought over an inheritance, right? We're all young, we're naive, we pretend like that doesn't actually happen, right? But no, he said, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Presumably, the father who left behind an inheritance, the 2 brothers are getting everything they need out of what was given. Maybe some land, maybe a business was left behind. Whatever it was, both brothers have everything they need. They have all the stuff they need. But one brother says, it's not enough stuff. I need more. And so he wants to cash out his shares. He wants to cash out the stock. He wants to sell his part of the inheritance so that he can go make a name for himself, so that he can go get more stuff. And Jesus says, well, I'm not here to be that judge, to make your brother give you your inheritance. And then here's one for you. Life does not consist in the abundance of your stuff. And so he tells that brother a story, and the crowd overhears. He says there once was a rich man. He had a bunch of land, and on that land it grew plentifully one year. The man had so much stuff he didn't know what to do with it. And so naturally, as humans do, he said, I have so much stuff, but my barns aren't big enough. I'm going to tear down my barns and build bigger barns. And immediately the crowd is kind of chuckling to themselves. They're like, yeah, this guy is going to be able to save everything up in these new barns. And so actually it says that the man said, you know what? If I have enough stuff that I grew, I can sit back, I can eat, drink, relax, be merry. It's like the person who kind of hits it rich at a tech company and goes, I'm moving to the shores of Costa Rica and just living there to do nothing the rest of my life. But the crowd knows that this is actually a very sad disposition, the way this man is treating stuff. He knows because the man says, soul, you are good. Eat, drink, and be merry. And that's a very sad way to treat your stuff, let's be honest. Because if all your stuff does is give you security, all your stuff does is give you a sense of purpose in this world, I am sad to say, actually happy to say, that you will find that completely empty. Because stuff takes care of people. Not only that, this man who had amassed all this stuff and built these bigger barns, Jesus says that your life is required of you. You're dead. What's going to happen to all of your stuff? In the book of Ecclesiastes, we learn that work and all this stuff is just toil and vain. And actually, in one part of Ecclesiastes, there's King Solomon's wisdom, and he says, oh, I have this huge inheritance, and I'm going to leave it for my grandchildren, and they're going to waste it. Because that's what stuff does. It takes care of people. It gets spent. You can't control it. But stuff, all it does is take care of people. And people actually need stuff, right? There are people with needs. There are people who need your stuff. So the Gospel of Luke is actually the same writer as the book of Acts. And the book of Acts actually kind of gives us a continuation of the ministry of Jesus, and even at times kind of affirms the actions of Jesus and gives us a continuation of the story. And so this is actually what happens in Acts, and you heard it in Amelia's children's message. You heard it actually as we heard Ben read it. It says that actually there was Pentecost where the Spirit came upon God's people. And all of a sudden, this gospel message was sent to people that at one point had no business hearing it. But it says when people heard it, they were cut to the heart. And they said, this Jesus who died, he's alive again. Now everything he said is true. And if you believe that this Jesus who died and rose again, nothing can stay the same. Something has to change. And actually in Acts, we get that kind of story of how things changed. It says that all of a sudden, these people who began to believe in Jesus gathered together as the church, and they looked around, and they saw that people have needs. And then they looked at the things they had, and they said, I have stuff. And so they started sharing stuff with people who had needs. Because that's all that stuff does. It takes care of people. Something about this passage that's kind of funny is no matter where you are politically, you try to use it to justify your belief system. People are like, oh, they shared everything in common. Communism, right? No, they did it willingly, right? And so it's like a democracy, republic kind of situation. I can't help but think that that's us forcing Jesus to say something he isn't. Because I think underneath whatever governmental system, whatever organization of people exists, the truth we need to hold on to is this: that stuff takes care of people. As soon as an organization, as soon as a government stops trying to take care of its people, it all goes sideways. And it misses the heart of who Jesus is. See, here at Reliant, we are going to use everything we have. We're going to use our time, we're going to use our money, our cars, our homes. We're going to use everything we have because we want to make much of God's name. We actually want people to know Jesus because that's how we believe they are taken care of. Jesus actually meets a deeper need that sometimes we can't even see. And so we'll use everything, we'll take everything we own and we'll put it all towards the cause of saying, this Jesus matters. He actually changes our lives. So here's where we are. Scene 1, stuff takes care of people. Scene 2, you look at the early church in Acts and you see that people need stuff. And here's scene 3, and this is where I shoot myself in the foot on this whole sermon. God doesn't need your stuff. God requires nothing to do his work. God does not need your stuff. He requires nothing to do his work. As the story continues, after the Christians shared everything in common, it says that they were all in the temple worshiping and praising God, and they were receiving God's Spirit, and they were taking care of one another, believing in Jesus. And then you get a story right after that of, it says, Peter and John were on their way to the temple for the day to pray and praise and worship. And it says, as they were going, they ran into a man on their way to the temple. Now, outside of the temple, there was a certain kind of system going on. See, there was a man who was lame, it says, and not like uncool lame, like legs didn't work kind of lame, kind of paralyzed below the waist. And what it says is that his friends would take this man and put him outside the temple to then ask for charity. And this was actually the man's job. It was his job to ask for charity. See, Jesus ran into this back in the Gospels as well, where he ran into a man who actually needed to be healed, and he said, hey, do you actually want to be healed? Because you're actually making quite a bit of money doing this. And here was the job that lame man was given. As Peter and John would go into the temple, they were doing a good thing, and so they would drop some money after being asked, and it was a little bit of a charade. And then the man who needed money would say, aha, Peter and John, what good men you are. And he would proclaim for the whole crowd to hear, and then Peter and John's name would be made great. But as they're going to the temple that day, the man asks for some charity. And actually, Peter and John are like, wait, we don't have anything for you. Why? Because they already shared it with everybody. He says, look at us. And I don't know what they mean by saying, look at us. Did they look poor? Did they only have like one set of clothes that was really dirty? I don't know what was going on. But it says that Peter and John are like, I don't have silver and gold. And so you're not going to praise my name. But get up and walk in the name of Jesus Christ. See, God doesn't need your stuff. He can do his work actually with nothing. Sometimes that's actually when he does his best work out of nothing. And so it's not Peter and John's name who are made great. It's Jesus' name who's made great. And it required nothing of Peter and John but to call upon Jesus. God does not need your stuff. What good news. If you don't have stuff, God's love and care for you is not dependent upon how much you have. If you have everything you need and more, you know that it's empty. Life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions. No, your God does his best work out of nothing. It says he created all things out of nothing. He even created you. He knit you together in your mother's womb. He made you out of nothing. And when God came to show his power on this earth, it says that Jesus came really as a nothing. He could have been born among royalty, but instead he's placed in a trough in which animals were fed. In his ministry, he actually came not to be served, but to serve. He became nothing. He actually on a cross emptied himself, became nothing for you. This is how God works. He doesn't need your stuff. He works out of nothing. And he comes to you when you had nothing to your name, when you had no accomplishments, when you had no wealth, when you had nothing in the bank, when you had nothing to prove that you belonged, your God came to you when you had nothing and rescued you out of the mess you were in. I guess if I'm talking about how people need stuff and stuff takes care of people, I guess this is the point where I'm supposed to kind of like tell you about the iPads in the back of worship where everyone signs up for online continuing giving. And then I tell you about endowments and other things. And no, that's not my job in today's sermon. That's Jeff Clater, my senior pastor's job. No, we can have that conversation about giving if you want to have that conversation. But today, what I want to do is actually haunt you with a question. I want you to be haunted by these words this week. Stuff takes care of people. That's all it does. You look at your Amazon wish list and all the things you want to buy over the next 6 months, all you have to tell yourself is, stuff takes care of people. And all of a sudden, you start to decide what you actually need. You look at the bank account, you look at the number you have there, and you say, stuff takes care of people. And you say, you know what, I actually have more than enough. You look at your car and you wonder if it should be fancier, and you just tell yourself, stuff takes care of people. You dream of the house that's a little bit bigger with the extra room in a nicer part of town, and you have to tell yourself, stuff takes care of people. That is all it does. So be haunted by that question, or actually that statement that stuff takes care of people, and that's all it does. And then for those of you who don't have, know that God works out of nothing. He doesn't need anything from you. He actually only takes the worst from you. He takes your sin upon himself, buries it, becomes nothing, so that you are connected to him. Your God works out of nothing. And you need to know that this week. You need to know that this week. Amen. Amen.